So loud. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first Economic Development and Marketing Ad Hoc Committee, City of Santa Clara. This meeting will be recorded. The Zoom application will notify you that this meeting is being recorded. Please press continue on the Zoom application to stay in the meeting. Use the raise your hand feature in Zoom when you would like to speak on an item and to also lower your hand when you're finished speaking. Please unmute when called. We need to rewrite this. Please unmute when called to speak and mute yourself when you are done speaking. If you are calling in by phone, identify yourself by name before speaking on an item. Press *9 on your phone to raise and lower your hand. Press *6 if you are participating by phone to unmute. Thank you. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have 3 members of our Economic Development and Marketing Committee. We're going to start with member Karen Hardy, who's our alternate member.
Roll call. Here, be official.
And I am here as well, and Councilmember Kelly Cox will be here shortly. So we're the 3 members of this committee. So public presentations. Do we have any public presentations? In the future, could I have the public presentations later on in the meeting?
Sure.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. So we do have a couple of attendees who are participating remotely. Please raise your hand in Zoom if you are interested in participating during public presentations, or this is for an item not on the agenda.
So this would be for public presentations of items that are not on the agenda. But if you want to speak regarding an item on the agenda, you're welcome to speak when I call for the public members to speak.
Correct. We do not have any hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, anyone here in the council chambers? Okay, seeing none. We're going to move on to our first order of business, which is an overview of the Economic Development and Marketing Committee. City Manager.
Sure. Thank you, Chair and Mayor and Councilmember Hardy, Javon Grogan, City Manager. Staff is excited about supporting this committee. And so we've prepared 4 items for you today. I am here joined by or with Liz Klotz, Assistant City Manager, whose purview includes a number of the items we're going to discuss tonight, including economic development. I'm here with Rena Brio, our Director of Economic Development and Sustainability, as well as Assistant City Manager Chuck Baker, whose primary responsibility is Stadium and Convention Center. And so the first presentation is by our new Director of Economic Development and Sustainability, and it's to provide an overview of this ad hoc committee that the City Council established. Ad hoc really meaning limited in duration, and they're really at a high level 2 scopes of work. One is on the establishment of our economic development program. The other is around the 2026 major events and some of the economic activities that will occur around there and how the city is preparing for that. And so with that, I will turn this presentation over to Rena Brio, and we're here to support.
Thank you, committee members and any members of the public who are watching. I'm Rena Brio. I'm the Director of Economic Development and Sustainability. Today, providing an overview of really the purpose of our committee that's going to be meeting several times this year, and a little bit about a background, because there are individuals who've been part of different committees with similar purposes and who've been paying attention to maybe that this is something reinvigorated but slightly different. So in February of 2019, the council actually consolidated 2 different committees that were in existence. So those were economic development and then a marketing committee. And through that consolidation, a new committee was formed also with a communications focus. So economic development, communications, and marketing. That committee met, however, there was a pause. Really, most recently, the last time that committee met was on October 18th, 2021. There was a lot of staff that needed to focus on the response to COVID-19. There were also budget implications that affected staffing. So this was just one of those committees that had to pause. Our city manager's office has been restructured. I am new in this role. I'm going to be providing support to this committee, as well as really recognizing that, you know, there's a body of work coming up in 2026 that we want to take and seize opportunities on. However, although we have not met since 2021 on these topics, the city has been doing a lot of activities related to the launch of our destination marketing organization. So that's Discover Santa Clara. And in a later meeting this year, we're going to hear from Discover Santa Clara about the work that they're undertaking and also what they're doing related to the 2026 events. I did want to note that in January of this year, the council took action to revise the name slightly to focus on economic development and marketing. Communications often falls under the purview of our governance and ethics committee. So really the ad hoc name is because we're launching this committee again, and our purview this year is primarily focused on seizing those opportunities in 2026. However, also in the new role that I'm in of Director of Economic Development and Sustainability, to provide the council opportunities for weighing in on the new economic development programs the city will be undertaking. So in terms of this year's focus being the major events of 2026, so this is Super Bowl and FIFA World Cup matches that are going to be held in Levi Stadium, where we expect thousands of visitors to come to the city and to the Bay Area in general. The activities that this committee will be providing feedback on are the planning of community events, revenue generation for city assets, really to leverage marketing opportunities that will be coming to those events, and also engaging our business communities so that they also reap the benefits of the opportunities that 2026 provide. In terms of economic development, so you're going to be hearing from me, not in this meeting, but later, about some of the programs that we would like to start supporting small and large businesses. So this is really providing better services to our business community in the ways that they engage with the city most primarily. And often that is in the permitting process, right? So enhancing those services to our tailored customers. Also engaging in marketing and branding efforts that will benefit our business community and Santa Clara as a place that is, I would say, recruiting and retaining our businesses. And then supporting brokers and property owners to filling those office and retail vacancies. And the city certainly has a role to play in that space and doing more active support for those entities, whether it's between trying to bring tenants in and helping them navigate that process, or it's actually helping them through the ideas of redevelopment of properties. And so economic development is in essence something very strategic that a city does. And this is where, you know, as a committee, to talk about what those opportunities are for increasing revenue generating opportunities for the city and putting more efforts to obtain more revenue for the city. And then also, so cities usually go through an economic development strategy process. That's a document that does surveys of businesses. It looks at our unique climate in the business community. What are those critical pieces that need to grow, that need to be maintained, as well as sort of our land use portfolio and how important all of those things are, but really a deep dive into Santa Clara's unique environment. So working on launching an economic development strategy as well. So with that, wanted to provide an overview today of the purpose of why this committee is meeting. I have colleagues here, Chuck and Liz, who have presentations on more substantive things, more substantively on the things I highlighted related to the 2026 events, but wanted, you know, to engage the council members, the committee members, I should say, on any feedback you have on what I shared.
Well, I'm excited to see what you have. And I especially think of some way to let people know when they come into town, all the different restaurants and all the different possibilities we have. Eating here is like a worldwide possibility and feast. And most people wouldn't know that. And I would love to have some way to make that very accessible.
Thanks. So for the overview of what we're doing here, I understand it's kind of twofold. One is the economic development of our city and what's happening with our businesses and how we can improve that situation. And then the other is the events that are happening for our community in 2026. I quickly pulled out some information I had from the last time I was on a marketing and economic development committee back before Super Bowl 50. And so I have a lot of information on what we did, how we were trying to market the city, all the stakeholders that we got together. So I'll share that with you, talking about all the community events that we did at the time. There was quite a few. We started well in advance, like a couple of years ahead of time. I know we have like 10 months for till Super Bowl and a year and a month or so before the other, but there was a tremendous amount of work and a tremendous amount of people that we have involved in the committee. And I want to make sure we get the same stakeholders at the table, which included a lot of businesses, big and small at the time. So I can see that putting to, having the sort of the two areas that we're focusing on with this committee, but when it comes to 2026, they can work together, I think. So I can see how it can blend together, but it's going to be a lot of work. So yeah, I see it. Good.
Do we have any members of the public? I see a hand raised. So Ian Bonham, if you just give me a second here, I am going to, you will be able to talk just momentarily.
Wait, did Liz and Chuck have something to say for this before we
For
went
this
to the
item?
public? I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add.
Not right at this time, no.
Oh, I thought you said they had.
They will on the other
Oh,
items.
on other things.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
Ian Bonham, I am going to allow you to speak. Hi, Ian. If you can, I think you'll be able to speak now.
Me?
Okay, hi, does that work?
Do you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, with the topic of, well, first of all, good morning, everyone. My name's Ian Bonham. I had been brainstorming because I'm like one of those guys who brainstorms things. And I've had this, I wanted to do something, something before my time on this planet is over. So my idea was to create something that would not only help the public, but also help the homeless community. That's a topic that's been near to my heart. So I have come up with a revenue generating idea that may or may not fit in your plans. So imagine, if you will, you're on a 14-hour flight. Your connection's not for another 8 hours. You're exhausted. Your clothes are rumpled, and all you want is a shower and a nap. But what are your options? A stiff airport chair, a crowded lounge, or an overpriced 30-minute hotel 30 minutes away. This is a reality for millions of travelers today, and it's a problem begging for innovation. So the travel industry, it is booming. Last year alone, over 4 billion passengers took to the skies. But while airlines and airports have optimized for speed, they've overlooked a critical need: dignified, affordable rest. Travelers face 3 universal challenges: exhaustion. 65% of layover passengers report severe fatigue. Then you have hygiene. No access to showers or laundry for the long-haul journeys, and homelessness crisis. A growing population lacks pathways to stable jobs. Current solutions are fragmented airports, lounges are exclusive and costly. Hotels are inconvenient, shelters lack scalability. The market is ripe for disruption. So with this is where smart sleep pods come in. We've designed a fully automated AI-powered ecosystem of sleep stations located in transit hubs. Think of us as the oasis of the desert for travelers and a lifeline for underserved communities. Here's how it works. Private soundproof cabins.
Hello,
with-
Ian?
Yeah.
Ian? We
yeah.
only have a couple of minutes for each public presentation. Is there any way you can send us that information on
Yeah.
your sleep pods? And maybe we can also pass it on to VTA, the airport, and other places as well, train
Yeah.
stations,
And I-
Caltrain.
Yeah, I've got revenue projections and a whole list of other things that go along with it. So yeah.
Please send it to city manager's office in City of Santa Clara.
Okay, will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us today as well. Appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Is that it?
We
Yeah.
do not have any other hands raised
Oh, yeah.
on this item.
What's that?
We do not have any other hands
Okay.
raised on this item.
Just to let people know, approximately 2 minutes. I mean, approximately depending on what the situation is. So, okay, all right, very good. Is that it for just the overview?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're moving on to the update on the city's participation in the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative. Assistant City Manager Liz Klotz.
Good afternoon. So last spring, the mayor was selected to participate in the Bloomberg Harvard City Initiative. The city manager and I had the pleasure of serving alongside her with this program. Hang on, please. Am I going backwards? Oh, there we go. Okay, so just for some context, former mayor himself, Mike Bloomberg of New York City, saw the value of investing in training and providing resources to research and studying of cities. He saw how much private investment's done for corporations on research and improving businesses, but he saw a big gap for cities. And this is why he probably made the single biggest investment in research and development of cities themselves. He decided to make that investment by creating the Bloomberg Center for the Cities in partnership with Harvard. So in 2017, that's when the City Leadership Initiative first started. I believe we are the 8th cohort of that initiative. He partnered with Harvard Business School and also their Harvard Kennedy School of Government to provide mayors around the world with the resources, support, and expertise they need to help them grow as leaders, and to also help solve some of the biggest problems and challenges that cities face. So each year, city leadership get together. There are 40 cities chosen from all around the world. They provide an intensive classroom experience and provide training and capacity building with these participants. And then it was followed by some online class studies throughout the past year. So part of these trainings really focused on 4 things. There was leadership, collaboration, innovation, and also data study, data analysis. The Harvard professors led classes on strategic leadership, performance, and government transformation. And these were the key topics. So during these class studies, we learned how to drive performance, transform government, learn from our peers. We did some cross-sector collaboration studying, engaging with our residents, and learning how to develop talent. What I found the most beneficial was actually the peer-to-peer discussions that we would have after each of these sessions. These discussions had been extremely helpful in learning how other leaders think, finding creative solutions, finding out what their failures were, what successes they've had. I found those relationships that were developed throughout the best thing out of this program. So as part of this program, each mayor got to pick a key priority. And our mayor decided to focus on our major 2026 events. Understanding that the impact of the major events will have on our city, the mayor wants to ensure that community voices are heard and during the planning and execution of these events. We want to focus and ensure that transparency and accountability is done to deliver these events for our public. To assist the city with this key priority, the Bloomberg Harvard program has given us a summer fellow. And our summer fellow is Aaliyah Kozak. She is currently finishing out her master's in public policy at Harvard. She is an urban planner background from the Netherlands. And she's also a researcher with the center, the Bloomberg Center for Cities right now. She will be with us for 10 weeks starting in June, and she's very excited to start with us in this project. The objective of her fellowship project will be to develop a strategy that enhances community engagement, improves relationships with our stakeholders, and ensures effective communications for our major events. We will have her gain information from our internal and external stakeholders, so summarize research and data to describe ways to better engage with our public and gain public trust for our work at the Levi Stadium. And we will also ask her to present that strategy to the committee once this is completed. Just briefly want to give you that, this partnership with Bloomberg isn't just this 1 year. It's a really long-term partnership that we can have that cities can truly benefit from. There's a ton of research, there's a ton of studies that are out there, and they also have these labs and departments. They include Civic Power Lab, Data Smart City Solutions, Equity Innovation Hub, and Local Politics Lab and People Lab, really engaging in our local politics, engaging with our community and helping us innovate. And our plan is to continue to partner and utilize these resources for long-term success for our city. So our next steps right now, our initiative is actually over in June. I think we have 2 more sessions, one this, I think there's one this month and then one the following in June is our last one. And then in the summer, we'll have our fellows start on June 2nd, and she'll work through August. And then just our ongoing partnership with Bloomberg, we plan to keep continuing. Are there any questions about this initiative? Sure.
I'm just wondering, it says summer 2026, work with fellow to develop and plan strategy for mayor's key priority. Isn't that when it's going to be happening?
Yes,
That just,
Sorry,
it's worded,
Yeah.
it's like you're trying to plan it, but
No. So sorry. Yeah, so she will be developing a plan and a strategy for the city over those 10 weeks. So at the end, should have a product of what her strategy is for developing transparency and accountability for the city to hold those events in 26.
Yeah, that should be 2025, not 2026.
Oh,
It's the
sorry.
Summer of 2025.
Yeah, oh, okay. Sorry, yeah, that was it.
that's
Yeah.
too late.
Yeah. I'm getting my 26 events and my 25 mixed up. Yeah, thanks for catching that.
I'm excited because I think it's opened the door to all of their resources at Harvard Bloomberg. So it's really great in terms of sharing information and other things that we need, not just they'll go past June 2025 to help us. I had a very unusual key priority compared to the other 39 mayors. Ours was the most unusual. I'm not sure they knew what to do with it at the time, but they did accept it and selected me to go. But it was challenging, although they did say a lot of their, the interns, it was a popular ask. There was a lot of competition for this event. So I'm excited to have her come and put some fresh eyes on our city and work with us, for this unique and historic time. I think it's great. Yeah.
Sure. I just wanted to add that one of the things that staff is hopeful for is that the fellow will help us in our ongoing communication and collaboration with the community. We've already reached out to the stadium manager to encourage the stadium manager to be a part of the process and meet with the fellow. And one of the things that we know right now is that our stadium really does not have a dedicated communication channel to the residents and the community. Oftentimes, the Levi's social media channels are used, which really broadcast very wide. And so one of the things that we want to work with the fellow on and the stadium managers, creating a dedicated communication channel that targets our neighboring residents and businesses in that area. That also doesn't rely on our city PD resources, because oftentimes those are utilized for critical notifications, not the routine, there's an event at the stadium, here community, here's what you should expect. And so we're hopeful that not just for 2026, but it could create a format that is long lasting.
That's fine. I just want to make sure she's focusing on our events, in 2026, that our community knows nothing about at this point. There's been no outreach to them in terms of things that are going to be happening. So that's the purpose of having her here,
Yeah, I
to
think,
make sure that it's focused on those two events.
yeah, I think the intention too is also like, if we are very successful in developing this strategy, it will actually provide long-term, public engagement
Sure.
for the events in a program that we can potentially use ongoing for the future. Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm excited to have her come. It's great to have somebody working on this full time. And they pay for her to be here, correct?
It's fully funded.
Fully funded
Mhm.
by, that's important.
Mayor, should we go to the public?
Yes,
Disney?
yes.
Is there anyone online who would like to provide a comment on this item? If so, please raise your hand in Zoom and we'll call on you. Okay, there is no one who has their hand raised, Mayor.
Okay. Let's move on then. So number 3, informational report on potential 2026 community events and major events task force. Assistant City Manager, Liz?
We might not need this first slide because I think we all know why we're here, to talk about the major 2026 events. But what the major 2026 events have for us is the ability to harness and highlight our city and showcase our city. We're expecting tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people to come here next year over the 7 events. It gives us the ability to showcase our community, our culture, and our hospitality in this city. So why does it matter in Santa Clara? It helps to elevate our profile internationally. We can showcase our local culture, innovation, our community values. It also helps strengthen our city civic pride and community participation. But from an economic development perspective, we also can build visibility and vitality for our local businesses. In order to prepare for a successful 2026, for our community and our businesses, we are planning on undertaking several initiatives. First is communications and city branding, community engagement and activities, economic development activities, and then our major events task force. And I'll go into detail on each of those. So similar to 2016, we're looking to create some type of brand identity for next year or on these 2026 events. But I think we would hope to create something for the year long, kind of get the excitement of both major events coming for the next year. We'd like to create a unified communications channel across all platforms, web, social, and digital media to ensure consistent communications throughout all of our communication platforms. We're working with the DMO, and we'll be working on a banner program and a wayfinding strategy for a welcoming environment for all our visitors that are coming into the city. We'll also be working on a city beautification campaign to ensure that our key corridors are improved and beautified for those visiting the city for the first time. For communication and engagement opportunities, we have several initiatives, and I know, Mayor, we are behind in getting some of these things undergoing. But the first things we're looking at are making sure that we find some low-cost, high-impact type of activities, activities that we can already implement through our own existing programs, through libraries and our park recreation programs, with the intention of expanding those programs with major event themes. So think story time with some of the athletes, summer camps where athletes are also making appearances. Also doing a sports themes book clubs and movie nights. We're also working with the Parade of Champions right now to potentially do a big sports festival at the end of their parade. And so kind of making a very huge focus around those events and getting the teams to come out on floats. Understanding that public safety will be focused around game security, we aim to have our community events so that it does not constrain the major events that are happening on those days, and trying to schedule them around the major event days and ensuring that public safety will be available. We're also exploring holding a night market in our downtown, looking at the parking lot at Commerce Plaza as a good spot for potentially activating that downtown area close to Santa Clara University. Similar to 2015, we're also looking to holding a concert in the city for our community. So those are some of the community engagement opportunities that we're hoping to hold, only because we know that many of our residents are not going to be able to attend those big events. They're not going to, and then some of those major fan experiences are happening in San Francisco and also in San Jose. Javon?
Yeah, not on this slide is the concept of having something at the stadium. I'm constantly reminded of this. In fact, I was at a community event this weekend and was reminded by a number of people that the community really does not use the public asset, which is Levi Stadium. And so it's not up here, but it's something that we've talked internally about, and we want to make sure that it's something that we can execute, potentially something after Super Bowl, but before FIFA. I think as a council knows, one of the major challenges with doing a community event at Levi Stadium is damage to the turf. And so picking a date is really critical because a turf replacement after a concert is paid by the private promoters. And so we really would love to have something like that in the lead up between Super Bowl and FIFA. And so we want to work on that, but also want your feedback on these ideas and any others that we should be looking at. So when we come back to you at your June meeting, we have a fully rendered list of community engagement events that we're working on.
Well, it's like you read my mind. Oh, that's right. I've been bothering you about this. I would really like to see something after the Super Bowl, but before FIFA, because we are going to have to replace Assad, so it's already beat up. And I think the kids would be so over the moon if they could come and even throw a football or kick a soccer ball in the stadium. Just being there on that grass would be something they would never forget. And if we had some athletes there to even do that with them, would be amazing. I know that at school, our multicultural rally is our biggest assembly and the one the kids like. The other ones they get dragged to. But some kind of a multicultural, because we do have many, many cultures here, and some kind of dance or exhibition of so many of those would be amazing. So I would love to see that showcasing those cultures for the residents. And if we only open the lower part of the stadium, you don't have as much security. You could even say so many tickets per address. We could have some way to do that. I think it would be very important to get people in our community to come to the stadium, because most people could not afford tickets to go to any of those big events. So I think it would be important to tie in all that together and have some sort of an activity as well as some sort of a performance that many people could be part of. My thoughts.
I do have a couple more slides, but do you want me to, or do we could talk
With the
about community
slides.
events
Go-
first
go
or,
to the
okay.
slides
Okay,
and
I'll just
we'll
finish off.
have
There's only a
all
couple more
slides.
left.
Right.
So the next aspect of our project will be working on economic development opportunities. These major events will be centered in Santa Clara and give us a special opportunity for visitors to see Santa Clara as a destination, but as a business center. Working with the DMO and the chamber, we hope to capitalize on these events to highlight our city. We will be looking to create a small business activation such as restaurant weeks or vendor fairs, and the creation of a digital business directory, similar to something that Councilmember Hardy just mentioned, so that, you know, our businesses can find restaurants or our visitors can find business restaurants or businesses that are located in our city. This will be later discussed with Assistant City Manager Baker's presentation, but sponsorship and marketing opportunities for our city and our city assets. He'll cover that right after this presentation. Okay, and to help support, you know, these major events that and our community events that we're bringing in, we are forming a task force that will provide advice and support to the city. This includes community and business members. They will also help with philanthropic efforts and help with our communication strategy to the greater community. Also, on this task force will be nonprofit representatives, our stadium manager, our DMO, and also our convention center leadership. They will help the city with providing additional resources but also provide opportunities to support all of the events that we plan to bring to the city. While major events can present a lot of challenges such as traffic congestion and public safety concerns, they also create significant opportunities for us. By showcasing our city, we can strengthen community ties, boost our business development, enhance our relationships with our residents, and build stronger partnerships with our local businesses and our community partners. So our next steps right now, we're refining our activation plans, hopefully with a work plan that we can bring forward to you at your next June meeting for the events to come up for 2026. We need to convene regular meetings with this major event task force so we can meet regularly in exchange of ideas and support. And then we will be returning with staff recommendations for the city council consideration as well. All right, any feedback?
I kind of have a lot on this because it's, so all I can go by is what we did in 2014, 15, and 16 for Super Bowl 50, because that was the biggest event that has ever hit the city. And we worked for quite a while, and we had our marketing committee that was chaired by Debbie Davis, God rest her soul. She chaired that committee, and we had a lot of stakeholders that would come regularly. So that's why I'm confused about this major events stakeholder committee, because that's what this committee did in the past. So I don't know why we're having two committees to do the same thing. Anyways, so Debbie then invited all the stakeholders in the community, which was the two colleges, University Santa Clara, Mission College, and that really led to our two concerts that we had. We had departments in the city like the library that was involved and Parks and Recreation. We invited big business and small business, and really we invited anybody in the community who was interested in being involved. We had members from the school district there, which was important because we had events that we were collaborating with the school district. But we had quite a large group that met regularly. And at the time, one of the first things we did was to rebrand ourselves. That's where the center of what's possible came out in a city with a mission, which we hardly used that one. But that's where the rebranding, we hired someone to do that, hired a firm to do that. and help us with that and come up with plans about how, in fact, I have a lot of information. I'll have them copy and leave it to you, how we were going to advertise it all over the city, including banners and, all kinds of things that we were going to do to make sure everyone was involved. And the best part of that committee was it was really driven by the stakeholders that were there. We had the Chamber of Commerce involved and we had the Levi Stadium people were here as well. So it actually worked pretty well. We also hired a fundraiser for the events. We hired a fundraiser and I think they ended up raising like $400,000 or $500,000 at the end of the day for the events. So that turned out okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. But really what we did was come up with a strategy and the best part about it is it was community driven. It wasn't just, the people north of Bayshore, because the DMO, they're charged with that entertainment district. What I want this committee to do is include the whole city and everything, because although we need to work together, there's different goals involved, because up until this moment, our regular residents have not been involved in any of this, and they're really excited about it. They want to be involved. We talked about volunteers, we ordered them sweatshirts and things like that to really get them involved. And we had a volunteer coordinator, because I can't tell you how many people that tell me they want to work on Super Bowl and World Cup, they want to volunteer. And so we worked on that as well. But we came up with some really good plans. At the end of the day, we did 2 concerts. We had a run. We had an exhibit, a gridiron exhibit at the Triton Museum, which people really liked, and they got to really discover the Triton Museum. We did ice skating at the tree lighting ceremony. That's where the ice skating started. The first year was for Super Bowl. And so that's, and they were called super community events. We branded the super community events with the little football, and it was kind of cool. We did a STEM Bowl. We worked with the school district and did a STEM Bowl at the Central Library. And then the 2 concerts, which were also sponsored by the University of Santa Clara. I'm not sure they do that again. And Mission College. So we brought in big business and small that helped raise some money for us and some other things. So that's what I consider this committee doing. But it sounds like you're going to have another committee that's going to compete with this committee. So why are we doing 2 committees? And that committee with who you have, I don't know who's picking these people to be on the committee. Maybe city manager, you can explain a little bit about that. But that's how, when we decided to have this committee, that's what I thought we were going to be doing, all of these things. But it sounds like you're having some other committee do it. So I'm really confused, because I want the focus here and now to be on the residents and businesses in Santa Clara. So maybe you can explain, city manager, what is this other committee?
Sure. Mayor, let me explain. And I know we've talked about this, so a little surprised, but what I would say is the city council established a economic development ad hoc committee. Our understanding primarily for the focus of hearing our new plans for our economic development programs. As you know, the city of Santa Clara has never had a real robust economic development program. So we have things that we do, but we don't have a robust program that focuses on small, medium, and large scale businesses, laser focused on business retention and attraction. We're developing that this year. That's a major part of this committee. Additionally, we were informed that last time around, a version of this committee worked on the major events. And so in the first item in today's agenda, we articulated that can and should certainly be a focus on of this committee. That said, absolutely, like you articulated, the various stakeholders that need to be in play to have robust community engagement, to raise money from various businesses and have a philanthropic effort is not a committee of three people on the city council, right? And so in order to have that committee, what we set up was a task force where we could invite people to attend, but also have those people have a leadership role, just like you articulated, in seeking community engagement and helping staff think through what the event should be.
Is
But
it staff or should it be the council? Help the committee, help the council see what the event should be? Because I see that committee being part of this committee. I see them being combined. That's what I'm saying. So,
right.
because you're not leading the charge, it should be the council that's leading the charge.
Never said that staff was leading the charge, Mayor. I think how.
Did you select all the committee members? Who are these committee members?
There's a draft list of people that we are targeting, Mayor. We've had
No,
conversations.
but that was a
and-
long time ago, and
Right.
then we developed this committee, so I figured that this committee was gonna be the committee.
Okay, and so we have not had that conversation. When the council appointed a committee, if there were members on this committee, the council would have needed to appoint those members. The council appointed a ad hoc committee of 3 people. And those are the people that are on this committee. Should the council want to appoint members to serve on the ad hoc committee, the council as a body would need to do that. It wasn't, the task force was, Madam Mayor, not meant to compete at all. It was actually meant to be that group of community members, businesses that got together to help inform and potentially meet on a more regular basis than this committee would meet.
I just want to say thank you. When we met before, before Super Bowl, we had a committee of 3 council members on the marketing committee. Nobody else was an official member. They all just came to be involved as public members of, being involved with giving us input. We asked them to all give us input. They weren't official members. It was a 3-member city council committee. So we don't need the council to appoint people to come to a public meeting.
Right, but what I understood and what I believe we've talked about on several occasions is that we need a group of people to undertake the philanthropic effort because council members would not undertake that philanthropic effort. Staff would not undertake that.
As happened last time.
That
Sure,
philanthropic
yes,
effort.
get it.
And so the thought was to set up a structure where we could have people as a part of that effort to work on that. They would certainly come to this meeting. They would potentially have meetings quite more frequently than we have these meetings to develop their outreach efforts, to, as you mentioned, say, you know what, this person will be a great representative of this section of the community. Let's make sure we have someone represented from this portion of the community, and certainly work together, but not certainly conflict any work. And when I said before, work with staff intends to support them, right?
Who makes the decisions on what projects or what events happen?
That would be this committee. I think we articulated that in
Whose committee?
this committee.
Oh, so that committee would report to this committee?
This committee is in, Madam Mayor, the Economic Development Committee. I think I said earlier is that we would look to come back at your next meeting with a more fully rendered list of programs, likely informed by the task force, but it would be this committee that would make those decisions and provide direction. Staff does in no way in structuring this intended that we were going to be the ones that decided from staff what community events happened and what happened where. We certainly know we need to partner with the community. The task force was a way to set up a structure to do that. But this committee, as part of what we talked about in item 1, it would be your charge to inform the activities that are provided.
Is this committee that you've formed, or is it open to the public? Can the public come and give their ideas to your committee?
So, Madam Mayor, one, it's not my committee. It's a task force that we were looking to establish for the express purpose of helping us think through and support various community events. I certainly think they will meet in a city building, and the meetings would certainly be open to the public. I would say that they may undertake tasks that the public don't attend, like go out and meet with the business to solicit a donation, things that this committee, as a committee of the city council, or things that staff won't do, right? And so I want to be very careful with my words, because all of their activities would not be open to the public, because they're meant to be a working task force that meets frequently to accomplish the goals.
So you selected who's on this task force? How do we know who's on this task force?
Madam Mayor, I will have the Assistant City Manager read through people that we have targeted to reach out to. Certainly, Madam Mayor, you and I have had conversations around talking about your thoughts of, hey, Madam Mayor, we think it'd be nice to have someone from this business. Do you know someone from that business? And you said yes, and I know you've been worried that you provided some names for us to reach out to. And so it was totally meant to be a collaborative effort in deciding who's on the task force. And certainly I, as a city manager, nor any particular staff member wanted to be the sole curator of that list. But the goal was certainly to have a representative of people from various stakeholders in the community, be they big, small, large, as well as key community stakeholders that can accomplish the goal.
So my point is that with our last committee, anybody could come. All members of the public were here giving ideas. I've have one community member in particular, she may even be online right now, that has an idea that's a fantastic idea for the events. Like, so she's not on the task force. She's not, but regular Santa Clarans, unless they know when the task force is meeting and they're publicly advertised when they're going to be meeting, how do we get them involved? And that was the whole reason for the Harvard Bloomberg, was openness, public engagement, you know, not you selecting a group of people, I don't know who they are, or they're all part of just the North Side Stadium Area Entertainment District, the DMO, the Convention Center, and the stadium. All right, that's different than Santa Clara as a whole, the residents as a whole. How do they get involved in this? Or are you selecting people that are also associated out there and not here for our residents? I just want to make sure, I don't know who you have selected, what public members, maybe that's is, how many are there? Are there a few? Who are they? It's just not transparent. I think that's my whole point. None of this is transparent.
I do think we did have a focus around the stadium for a bit, but I mean, we do have a focus around the stadium because it does impact the residents over there, and thinking of how that would impact those residents. And so that's why we had wanted Councilmember Gonzalez to serve
That's
on.
why I
Yeah,
put them on
committee.
this committee.
Yeah, because it would influence, you know, his residents. And so that was one of the reasons we've asked also Kevin Moore to also serve, because he's an active.
Doesn't he work for the 49ers?
I don't know. But then we've also asked business members, you know, some of our major business companies like NVIDIA, the Morley brothers, who are also active in the businesses around here as well. And also probably reaching out to Santa Clara University. We have not reached out to them directly, but we would want the universities to be, and Mission College to be involved in the committee as well. But you're right. I think I do need to reach out to more community members and figure out which ones we would want to serve on that community.
That's why I'd like them to come to this meeting.
Okay.
And talk about what we want to do in our community. I'd like the school district in there, Santa Clara Unified,
Yeah. And
Mission College, members of our senior commission, our senior groups, like it needs to be more public. They certainly can have that meeting with your stakeholders that are out there. I mean, they're probably working together anyway. But this is for the residents.
And perhaps may I suggest that we have the stakeholder meeting, but also in the June meeting, invite everybody to attend.
To attend this meeting.
Yeah, in June.
Yeah. I think so. Okay. All right. Anybody else? No? Okay. All right, next item. Can I borrow that back? Oh, member of the public.
We do have a member of the public, two members of the public with their hands raised. Ian Bonham, if you are interested to speak, I believe you can speak now.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead,
Okay,
please.
yes, yeah. So, yeah, I'm on board with the mayor with this one. It was a little confusing on how that worked. It didn't seem like it was as inclusive as it could be as far as community engagement goes. Um, I did have, I know of a friend of mine, he does the local Pop Warner, and with the football, uh, you know, uh, theme being next year's event, there's lots of local Pop Warner teams that would love to be on the stadium at the time, maybe of that game, and that would uh, absolutely engage the community in what's going on with, because I know that there's lots of local community members that would love to be involved in larger productions, and it would actually, bring together the community as to see that the mayor's office and the local government is inclusive and including these local football teams like Pop Warners. Like next year, I think, or this year, they're going to Florida, and they're going to do that. But it would be great if they could, like you said, throw the football on the field, maybe at halftime, or engage, the local Pop Warner teams to engage with, some of the football players, the NFL football players, and that would bring community, inclusiveness and and community engagement, and it would really bring the morale up as far as between the local community and the mayor's office and the local governments, meaning that they wouldn't feel as if they're just left by the wayside and, not being seen or commemorated for the good deeds that they are doing through those types of public engagements that they are involved in as well. So I don't know how to
Thank
say it.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you. We
Yeah.
appreciate your comments. Thank you for calling in or zooming in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. We do have Misha. Misha, if you are interested in speaking, you should be able to speak now.
Everyone, thanks for unmuting me and involving me in the conversation. But I also kind of wanted to piggyback off of that and agree that I think there are a lot of unique ideas that we could bring to the table, and having an opportunity to kind of share those and be a part of the committee would be awesome. Something that I kind of think would be cool to do is have some sort of like village where we can include local businesses to be part of like building that and putting it together. I have a construction company in Santa Clara, and my mind's kind of thinking of how can we highlight some of the local businesses in Santa Clara that may not specifically be related to like the sports industry, but we can definitely help bring that vision to life when it comes to like building this village and having like local, food stands there that may not be as big, that could partner like with Levi Stadium, but still giving them an opportunity to kind of showcase who they are and what they do, and where they are in Santa Clara. And I also think like doing some sort of like big music festival. I know like San Jose has done that a couple times and it's been really popular, and San Francisco does something similar. So I thought, why don't we do that? Maybe that's at Levi Stadium, or highlighting another one of the incredible locations we have in Santa Clara. But a couple of thoughts that are like on my mind. The list goes on and on. But yeah, I just wanted to share, like, I think there are lots of folks that can bring value to the table.
Thank you, Misha.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. We do not have anyone else with their hand raised, but I'll just ask again. If you'd like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in Zoom and we can call on you. Okay, that is it.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I can.
Yes.
I think we need to determine how we go forward. I first want to say, staff, one, never meant to exclude anyone. I don't think we proposed anything that would exclude anyone. Two, I don't think this city has ever ran a process where we did not seek community engagement and input, and we certainly intend to and intended to do that in everything that we presented. I am not an expert on what happened 10 plus years ago. I've heard a bit of the summary that you provided. I would say that we really have some decisions to make. We can invite people to come here and they can speak at public comment and get their allotted time, how you would typically operate for a formal committee. Or we could establish a body to where a group of people can work together. They can have open meetings, but they could also undertake things like philanthropic efforts that this committee can't do. Not sure how you operated last year, not sure if you followed rules, not sure if the laws have changed since then, but I can tell you for certain, if you have people a part of this committee, then we need to notice them. They need to be appointed members. And so what we were attempting to do was to create a format where we have this body, but we also have a task force that can meet on a regular basis, that can have community meetings, that can solicit input. And to start that task force, we were targeting people and businesses. And I know we've had conversations with you, Mayor, in particular, as well as others on the type of people in the community that could be on that task force. So that's where we were heading. Happy to have suggestions on people we should reach out to, and happy to take suggestions on how to change the format. If the committee would not like to have a task force and simply like to invite people to come to this meeting to speak and give their input, we can certainly adapt and adjust. What we were attempting to create was, again, a task force that could do some real dedicated work on these major events, but then always come back to this body and say, here's the recommendations, here's the work, here's the people that were involved, here was the community engagement, what say you? Now we can alter that. We can certainly alter that.
Okay, so when we formed this committee, it was to work on events for our public for 2026. That was the reason, the major reason to form this committee. What are we supposed to do if it's not engage the public to come forward, to give us ideas? There's a lot of good ideas out there that, you know, from 2016, we can make them more relevant, more in today's world. Like Misha just mentioned, hey, look what San Jose did with the concert, with the DJ, and did that. We can do that in Santa Clara. So there's a lot more fresh ideas out there. But until you put people around a table, we didn't officially appoint anyone. Like, for instance, I asked some of the execs from Bay FC, and even when I was in Washington, hey, we're going to have this committee come and be involved because they have good ideas. So there's a lot of people out there with really good ideas, but no venue to even talk about the ideas. So I thought this is the best venue for them to come. They don't have to be official to come here and tell us what their ideas are and get involved. You know, we can invite the school district, we can invite Mission College, we can invite whoever, and if they come, they come. If they don't, they don't. But at least get them involved and talking with us, because they're not going to go to the task force meetings if they're if their charge is to go out and raise money and do those things. That's a good charge for them to go do those things, because we can't do those things. We can't be involved in that. But if they have ideas, this is the place for the public to come. That's how I envision this committee, that you don't have to be invited. Everyone's invited. Come and give us your ideas. That's how we, came up with the STEM Bowl. There was a gal from the library that said, yeah, I think I've seen this, and I think this is a great thing. And we thought, oh, that's fantastic. That turned out to be like wickedly popular. And that came from our own staff people. So I think getting departments, if they want to come involved, getting the Triton and, others to say, hey, yeah, the chamber, if they want to be here, members of the public that have connections and ideas. And then certainly, like Ian mentioned, Lions football during Super Bowl and certainly during the soccer events. There's a lot of soccer-based organizations that would love to come, but this would be the place that they come.
Sure.
That's how I envision this committee.
Sure, Mayor. So with that, let me frame a decision point. Because we very much envision that type of input. It was just going to happen at the task force level and then come to this committee, which again would be another open meeting where people can come and share ideas. If you would like, and the committee would like, that idea generation, that ideation to happen at these meetings, we can pivot and potentially have these meetings every 2 weeks and develop a schedule where this committee is doing that work and not have a task force. But what we were attempting to do was to create a task force, started by selecting people with informed input, and then have that task force work with staff and then bring that here. And we can do that, or we can say, you know what? We want all the input to occur here, and the task force would solely do philanthropic outreach and seek to raise money. But we try to navigate to absolutely keep the intent of this committee to focus on, in part, the 2026 major events, but also have a working group that could do some dedicated work on event ideation, do outreach to the public, and then bring it back here. That again would be a public meeting. Would ask for direction because we certainly want it to be inclusive and engaging. And if you feel that that's not the case, then we can pivot.
Certainly for the public's benefit, for our public in Santa Clara, the stadium is involved, the stadium manager is involved with the operations of the stadium, not necessarily out and to see what events we're doing at the library. I mean, that's their task, unless you're seeing that differently. And the DMO is the entertainment district. That's what they're focused on, filling the hotel rooms in the entertainment district and marketing our convention center. So I could see them, definitely, they have a synergy working together and all that, but you're looking at that task force to determine what happens with our public events in Santa Clara, right?
No,
I
ma'am.
mean,
No, ma'am.
Or is that task force just to go out and raise funds?
No, ma'am.
What is the task force supposed to do?
I'll repeat it. It was a task force to be made up of business leaders, residents, key community stakeholders, and we thought it would be good to also invite the DMO and a representative from the stadium to be a part of that.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Now, I also think that you're maybe potentially confusing our prior item where we talked about the stadium manager working and meeting with the Harvard Fellow.
No, I'm not
on ideas
confusing that at all.
for transparency, but the thought was to have a task force made up of various stakeholders from all across the community to do that idea generation, to seek additional input, and a group that had some key strategic people that could go out and raise funds. And then they would have meetings and then we would eventually come here and say additional public comment in a more structured format like we're doing today. And this committee would make the final, would provide direction on community events informed from that work. And Assistant City Manager, please add anything that I left out.
So they'd give us recommendations, but we wouldn't hear how the sausage is made. We wouldn't hear, we would just get final recommendations from the company. I think I would like to see a more transparent, open, and accessible meeting to our public. They can come down to City Hall. We used to have them in the library. So people can easily come, and believe me, people came. They came and were involved. So.
Sure. And as we stated, we can make
Two
sure.
different things. So committee, what do you want to do? I'd like to see it one way with direct engagement with the community, with this committee.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in. There was no intention of circumventing the committee or getting input from, the council on the events. It was more of time is of the essence and being able to meet quickly with groups and stakeholders as quickly as possible to identify events, funding sources, things like that, and bring it back to you. But we understand that we want to engage this committee more fully with the community, and we can make efforts to do that.
Can you speak in the
Yeah,
thing?
into the mic.
Is it on? Hello. And I apologize for being late, and I do want to recognize that when you're catching up from behind, that's super rude. But it sounds to me like this is maybe a layer of bureaucracy that, again, there would be less work for this committee to do the public outreach. I understand the part about fundraising, being a touchy subject. But regular meetings, getting community feedback, the dedicated work recommendation, all of the things that we mentioned with the task force, I thought was what this group was supposed to do as well. I don't know if it's about the frequency of meetings. I guess I don't know what need was being met in order to create an additional task force that essentially is duplicating the same efforts, except for the fundraising piece. And it sounds like, you guys are in like thoughts about who to ask, but I have people been already invited to participate on this task force? I mean, because if we're going to talk about making changes to it now, I don't know how far you guys are into this task force, and have people already been tapped for it?
There have been groups tapped, but there is no limit to the number of people to include, right? So we could use more small business, and as the mayor indicated, we could use more community members outside of the stadium area and make more citywide.
Yeah,
So,
I guess I'm not speaking
Yeah,
towards
yeah.
that, but if you're talking about almost a dismantling of it now to do this.
It's not. It's more, okay.
I think the difference would be asking those task force members to come here to a structured meeting where we have 3 council members appointed, and they're speaking around public comment on agendized items versus a working group is what the task force was meant to be. I mean, certainly we can, typically when you have a council appointed committee, anyone who's sitting at the table is appointed by the council. And creating a task force was meant to give people ownership, not just say, hey, come to this meeting that the
It wasn't like
council's
that
task force is
before. We
having.
had a big table. Nobody was appointed. If you wanted to come, you came and sat at the table. And you had a chance to speak during we called them all stakeholders. They were all stakeholders, and they all had a chance to speak during the time period, or what they wanted to bring to the table, or what they wanted to follow up on from the last.
And we can pivot and have this committee be the task force. I do know how difficult it is to schedule meetings with council members, and we want it to be able to be nimble. So happy to take direction if you would like us to invite all of the members that we're going to be on the task force and take any additional suggestions and say, come sit at a big table. We will be meeting periodically to do this. We can do this in a less structured format, but we would be publishing agendas. Every time we meet, we would need to do that process because this is a council committee. We can certainly do that. Very, very happy to do that. We were attempting to create a working group that would work with staff and then bring those concepts and ideas to this group.
Mayor, can I ask a question? Did you meet monthly back then, or was it still quarterly?
We met, well, it depended on what was happening when we were doing the rebranding. We met like every other week.
Every other week? Oh, so
Yeah,
you're more
so it
frequent.
depended when there was information available. Like here's a sample agenda. 15, 16, advertising and marketing strategy. That was our staff. Super Bowl 50 local event marketing strategy, update on local events, fundraising sponsorship program, regional collaboration, San Francisco Bay Area Super Bowl 50 host committee update, and then stakeholder updates at the end. And then everybody around the table got to speak, and then adjournment. That's a sample 2-hour meeting. So when we had deliverables, like when they were doing the deliverables for the branding, which they have some cool stuff in here we never used. But when they had deliverables for the branding, we would meet more regularly because now we're 10 months away. We started a couple years in advance. We're 10 months away from Super Bowl and then we have, by the way, World Cup. So that's a different type of branding as well than the Super Bowl. But they had such really cool stuff, but we met when we had to meet. And so that's going to be, I think, the situation here. We meet when we have to, when there's something to talk about or some direction that needs to take place.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I could ask, were those meetings televised in this type of format?
Well, we certainly didn't have Zoom back in 15,
Right.
16. Yeah.
So, but were
So-
they open and available?
Yeah. So we did most of them. We actually did most of them at the library.
Okay,
In the
they
Martha Edinger room, and then some here.
So
I'm gonna have them copy this so you
Totally.
can look at all this,
And-
because nobody's left. Nobody is left that was there. Everybody's gone except for me.
So typically for cities, ad hoc
Mhm.
committees now, they are, we publish agendas.
Yeah, it was published and advertised.
Ahead of time. We put everything on Zoom. We allow public comment. There's a more structured agenda. What
Mhm.
that sounds like to me is more of a working group that got together and met in a room to make decisions. But it wasn't a formal, how we would now run a council ad hoc committee.
100% formal like we now run it. It was 3 members of the council. We had the chair, staff was there, we had the agenda. We ran it, we voted, like 3 of us, to make recommendations to the city council. It was run like that. At the end, it would be stakeholders if somebody had to pop in on something. But it was completely ran like a agendized meeting,
So
an
totally-
agendized committee meeting.
So my ask is the direction from the committee. Would you like us to not have a separate task force that works on community events in collaboration with staff to bring those ideas to this committee with the understanding that the task force would have public meetings and this would be a public meeting? And would you instead want us to invite various stakeholders to this meeting and have this committee meet more frequently and have it be a working based meeting and structure it so that we're compliant with all today's rules? I think that's a core question. It's sort of just 2 ways to accomplish the
Sure.
same thing.
My concern is I don't want to slow things down. And I do like the idea of a task force meeting whenever they need to, that is open to public members, to stakeholders, and they come back and report to this committee. I think that's good. But I think there's too much work to be done to get some projects off the ground to make certain we get the scheduling that we need for certain places and put that into reality. I think of consolidating it just here would slow things down quite a bit because we do have some limitations as being council members. And I like the idea of the task force having more autonomy to go out and do the things that cannot be done by council in conjunction with putting things together and coming in and reporting. It makes sense to me.
Thank you. I want to speed things up. We don't have time. I don't know if you've ever worked on any of these type of events, but we should have started them last year. So there's no time, we have to work quickly on this. There's nothing to stop. And I don't know when you talk about the stakeholders going out to raise money, they can do that anytime. And that's going to be more of getting the businesses involved. They can do that anytime. And we even had fundraising sponsorship programs on our agendas in the past. I think that if we're just going to be a rubber stamp for the task force that is not open to the public to have come and be involved with their elected officials, then, and you're going to select the people that are on this task force, I don't understand the purpose of this committee. maybe, you know, we can talk about economic development in the city, but in terms of these events, there's no purpose to have us here if we're not going to be involved and engaged with the community on these events. I don't see the purpose. So I think there's a time and place for the task force. They can do certain things, but I think in terms of the community events that are going to happen, it should happen at this committee. And we should be open to working directly with the public, transparently. Okay, so
I guess at the June meeting, we'll schedule this item.
Well,
And
I think at the end of the day, staff needs clear direction. If I can restate it, it appears that we're discussing option A and option B. Option A would be, there's a task force that has a scope of work that includes having public meetings, idea generation around community events, fundraising for those community events. We would start the task force, but the meetings would be open to anyone to attend when they're having their formal meetings, not every act of the task force, because the task force may say, we're going to go meet with this company to see would they donate money for X. I would say that's option one. Option two is we have I think we've all said that there should be a group that does philanthropic fundraising, because that is not something that staff nor council could do. We would hope that a group establishes to do philanthropic fundraising. If anyone comes to the table, or we may suggest some people get in a room and then set them about that course. But then we'll schedule more regular meetings of this committee, make sure that they're open wide, invite anyone and everyone to attend, and we will do that work here at this table. And that's the idea generation. I imagine that we would be meeting on a regular clip, sometimes potentially weekly, bi-weekly. Certainly we can't do it monthly. And so it would be working with the 3 council member schedules, at least making sure that we have 2 that can attend, making sure that we publish the agendas, making sure that we have staff here to carry everything on Zoom, and everything else that comes with doing a regular council.
well, you will with the other meeting too, if they're public meetings, right?
I think there can be public meetings, and there right now are public meetings that are not on Zoom. It's announced, it's out there. People meet, but it's not on Zoom. But certainly we can seek to do that if that's desired as well. But I think we just need a decision and direction.
I agree.
Direction to staff.
I agree, because if it's going to be the task force, I can't just be here to wait and be a rubber stamp for whatever they're going to do. There's no purpose for this committee for 2026 events. There really isn't, if you're going to have a task force. Anyways, that's how I feel.
And again, happy to we're sort of discussing options, happy to discuss through any other options. Certainly the council members can attend a task force meeting. It couldn't be a majority of this committee. And so one could attend the task force meeting. We had said that we thought that it would be appropriate to have the District 1 representative. Maybe the mayor is the representative on the task force. And so you do attend the task force, and you are that representative from this committee on the task force, and we're working in that manner. Certainly, I think that could work and guide the process.
The task force, well, if the staff is involved, you can't organize them to go raise money anywhere. So you can't give them direction. They have to do that on their own. So that shouldn't even be part of the city-controlled task force. They'd have to go raise that on their own. We were able to hire a fundraiser for our events. We did raise some money in the past. So are you just going to rely on individuals that you select for the task force to go raise money? Or is the task force looking at hiring someone to raise money
So
for them?
as far as the philanthropic portion, we were going to let the task force decide how they would organize to do that. As the mayor is aware of, there is a concern about behested payments in that a staff or a council member asking individuals or businesses in our community that may have business before the city. So certainly there is always a firewall behind that. Not sure what happened 10 years ago, but if we use city funds to fund someone that does behested payments, that's the same issue applies. And so not sure how it worked last year, 10 plus years ago, but we would not want to fund a contract for someone to undertake those activities. It would really need to be a group of people that get together, that set their own targets and set and solely independently drive those missions and objectives.
So they don't need a task force to do that?
Absolutely not.
They shouldn't be talking about it then?
Absolutely,
task force.
absolutely, that can be done without a formal task force.
All right, committee, what do you want to do? Who wants direction?
Well, I said it before, and I feel comfortable with the task force, and then there would be lots of time for the public to come in, because they could come into these meetings. The task force would be coming in and reporting back as to what they are working on. And then they also would have open meetings that members of the public, I'm just sitting here thinking, we've only had 2 members of the public come to this meeting so far that have spoken. So obviously we want more involvement, but we also need to get the ball rolling. So I'm comfortable with the first idea, Plan A.
And may I suggest that, Mayor, if there is a task force, that you be on the task force?
I think the task force, if that's what this committee decides, the task force should probably report to the full council. I don't understand the point of coming back here. Would we just wait until they're done with their work and recommending to us?
No, Mayor, the goal is for this committee to meet again on June 6th. And so we would hope to have several task force meetings before then, and then bring the ideas before this task force. And it was always to be informed and have a member of this committee on the task force. And so, Mayor, I'm recommending and suggesting and hoping that that is you. And then that work comes to this committee, and this committee reviews it and provides input and direction.
So we have nothing to do except wait for the task force to give us their opinions. Whatever public input they get will be funneled through the staff at Remnant.
I would not.
Unless Lisa is present at the task.
Right. It was always envisioned that one member of this body would be at the task force.
But again, that's all our body is doing then. We are not doing public engagement. We're not going out. At events, we're not planners. We're not doing programmatic development. We are just here to wait for the task.
Not direction, concepts and ideas. That was, I think there's a core discussion here, right? Around the work that this committee does. And certainly you can provide guidance that, this committee wants a survey of the public, right? And so we would.
I thought that's what we did sign up to do.
Right.
Maybe I was
But
totally missing.
typically council members do not conduct surveys themselves. They provide direction to staff to do that, right? And so as a committee, you could direct staff to conduct a survey and bring those survey results back to this committee. And we don't have the city clerk here, but scheduling council member calendar, trying to find a meeting. Totally.
Yeah, we don't have.
And so it has typically been a challenge to schedule meetings. And if this committee would like to, let's say, reserve a, Thursday at 4 o'clock, something where we meet on a regular basis.
Yeah,
So
we would do that.
we know we have that meeting time. Happy to pivot and go that route. But again, I think the core question is, is there a task force developed that then comes to the body, or does the body want to essentially be the task force and invite people to attend and hear their input?
Yeah, and I get it. It doesn't sound bad on paper. Again, what I'm suggesting is there was a disconnect for me between what we signed up for, what I'm seeing happening now in this. I'm not saying that the task force isn't worthy. To me, this again feels like what our city does. It's a layer of bureaucracy to try to essentially squash Lisa. To make sure that, the ideas of staff and certain parties get forward before we get to it. It is a different model than I understood happened before. It feels like a waste of time for somebody to be on this committee then and say, yeah, I'm into the economic development. I want to work with community partners. Essentially, we're just having another council meeting that says, hey, we did all the legwork. You guys can vote. Now, I'm not opposed to that, but this is not what I would want to spend my time doing or getting excited. And so again, if that was how we rolled all the time, but to me, I'm always like, there's an underlying issue here that nobody's talking about, and fine, whatever. But if this layer of bureaucracy was cut so that other people wouldn't have opportunity in it, I'm just going to throw that out there and say that's how we roll, I guess. But
yeah, I would say there was never any intent
yeah, and I'll
by anyone on staff to squash any input or not have any input by anyone on the committee. I mean, the fact that that's even a thought out there.
I'm having a hard time again, not understanding why two very, very similar committees are meant to do the exact same thing. But now we're saying, we don't want you to do that. We'll do the work and you guys vote.
If I can say it again, that's interesting, because when this committee was established, there was a write-up in the staff report, if I'm remembering correctly, that talked about the scope of work for this committee that is very similar to what we presented today and what was in the staff report from here. Actually, when I read that staff report, it was like, oh yeah, that was in that report that went to council. And so I don't think from the staff's perspective that there's a misalignment in what this committee was set up to do. I think that there's desires of what this committee should do now, and we're totally willing to pivot. Absolutely. As staff, we take our direction from council. And so know that staff report for item 1 that you received that talked about the scope of work for the committee, very, very similar to what was in the staff report and the action that staff had. And frankly, in staff's mind, we were going to staff and support an ad hoc committee the way we normally support a council committee, which is we have scheduled meetings, they're on Zoom, we present something, we take feedback, we go back and do work, and then we bring it back to the body. Now, and so we're totally, and then there was also the concept that we would have a task force that would meet more frequently, and let's have a member of the committee on the task force, et cetera. And so, again, I know we articulated earlier that the thought was to have the District 1 representative there. If that in any way made anyone think that we were somehow not wanting the input of others, I actually now, hindsight 2020, we should have left it blank and said, hey, committee, who would you like there? But as I said before, have the mayor be the representative on the task force. I think that's great. But I think our core question is, how do we do the work that's ahead of us? Because we do have a limited amount of time. And if again, we're willing to pivot. If this committee would like to have the work happen here, we can adjust, invite any and all people to this group and have this be more of a working meeting, we're happy to do that. It's not how we envisioned it from the council direction that we received and what was in that staff report. And that's how we proceeded here today.
Can I say something for a minute? The staff report, the council direction and the staff report is to have this committee work on events for the public, right? Wasn't that part of it? Was planning and working directly on Super Bowl and World Cup events.
Yeah, I think the description of the ad hoc committee, when it was presented in January, I'll pull it up so that
Okay.
I'm not paraphrasing. So
Right.
Give me a second to.
Okay. When I went to Harvard Bloomberg, I said, you know, my issue was to make sure that the public is fully engaged with these events for 2026. And how can we make sure we're, you know, financially responsible for these events, and also to make sure there's a transparent and open and engaging event. What we're talking about, that is the opposite of that. Because when the public wants to give us input, they don't want to give input to the convention center or the stadium manager or the DMO. They want to give input to the mayor and their representatives on the city council. Then they know that they're giving direction directly to who the policy and the decision makers are. So all I can say is, I know I don't like talking about what we did in the past, but it really worked. People were excited. It was so fun to be sitting around a table with all the different stakeholders. And believe me, a lot of us didn't like each other, but this event brought us all together for the common goal of really feeling like a community, that we were working on something that we knew we couldn't afford to go to these events, but we worked on events for ourselves to make sure that our community was excited about it. If you have some unknown task force that you pick city manager, and we're going to have there's a huge disconnect between that. They need to see us. We need to be involved. Otherwise, let's have the task force report directly to the city council. And then you won't have to worry about this committee. Did you find it?
Yeah, there is background, you know, a lot of what was
Yeah.
shared in the first item that I shared with everyone on the purpose of this committee. And it talks about the adjustment of the name of the committee from Economic Development, Communications and Marketing to Economic Development, Marketing Ad Hoc. Talks about why the term communications was to clarify the community's focus related to economic development and marketing activities, and not the varied communication services that are provided by the city's communications division and public information officer. Additionally, the change to ad hoc committee is recommended to convey that the scope of the committee will be limited in duration, and following 2025, the council will assess the continuation or adjustments to the committee. Then it is, we talk about consisting of 3 members of the council with 1 alternate, to meet at least quarterly as a non-Brown Act body with various staff members, with everyone here that discussing.
Did you say non-Brown Act body?
Correct, non-Brown Act body. And then upon the appointment of the members to the committee, staff plans to calendar initial meeting in February. Obviously, this is April. And the agenda will include an update from Discover Santa Clara, as well as focus on economic impact opportunities, business engagement regarding the 2026 events, including Super Bowl and FIFA World Cup 2026. So that was the reference. And then just making sure there isn't another reference point elsewhere in the report. That is sort of the summary of what was in the report. And I know that City Manager Grogan, you actually gave a verbal as well at that meeting.
I gave a verbal, and I want to state one more time for the task force. We did seek input, Mayor. I know we had a discussion around members you thought would be good on the task force. I know
All you mentioned was one name, Teresa O'Neill, and I said, oh yeah, that's nice.
I know that
But that
had a
wasn't to
discussion.
supplant this
Right.
committee.
So again, I think we just have a decision to make.
Agreed.
And staff is happy to pivot, and we're happy to schedule these meetings more frequently. As it mentioned in the staff report that set this up, it was said that the committee would meet at least quarterly. And the thought behind that was that we would have a task force that meets more frequently. We can certainly pivot and have this group meet periodically, bi-weekly, weekly, whatever's needed.
Mhm.
Certainly depending upon your schedule, staff, we'll do what we need to make ourselves available.
I think that we either make this one committee and meet more frequently because we have to. There's no time. And make it more engaging, or if this committee decides to have the task force, then have the task force report to the city council, because then we can meet quarterly, because it won't matter what we do here. So that's what we should do. I'm fine with whatever happens. So ladies, Karen, you've already. Task force.
I like the task force idea. I like them coming back to this committee. As the alternate, I'm available practically at any time. I will be retiring within a month. So my schedule will truly open up. And I think more people at the table, more ideas helps. And especially when we don't have a lot of time and we want to do this as fast as possible, I have no problem with it being a smaller group of council members, because quite frankly, when we put the whole council in front of something, sometimes we have way too much discussion. Oh, did I say that? And that maybe could slow things down. And I see this as similar to a policy board where we dig into the details and then let the entire council know what we're doing. But that this is still public, and let a task force do a lot of that other work that needs to be done. Instead of just fundraising, they can do much of the legwork, and we work together and divvy out the tasks. I'm fine with that.
I am not sure if that was one way or the other in terms of your suggestion. It sounded like a third option.
Can you speak into the mic a little closer?
Yeah, I don't know. That was a third option then, as opposed to yours, or was that a support of the first kind of larger group task force?
I think the work should be done here with this committee. That's my position.
I don't know. Is that a possibility?
Staff can certainly pivot. I would, these meetings would be dependent on council schedules and at least two of you being available. I would say that meeting as frequently as we would need to meet, I would like an understanding that if we only have two, no matter what, two members, we still have the meeting, because I know it is very difficult to schedule council members. You know, council members have jobs. Council members have other various commitments, and we are meeting during the workday here because that works for staff the best. If this is that meeting that is going to be open to not open to the public, but where that ideation happens, and we're inviting our community members, I don't think having it at Tuesday, during the workday is going to work. And so based on how we're discussing, to me, these meetings happen at night, right? And so does the body wish to have them at 5, 6, or 7? And again, the thought of having a task force was to have, a little bit more flexibility on the group getting together at different times and making sure that, they could be available to the public. Again, staff is happy to pivot. If the committee would like to have the work happen here, I will work to figure out how, make sure that it's staffed and supported, and we will invite people. But I don't think, again, having meetings of this committee during the the workday if we're really wanting this meeting to be the ideation space is going to work.
I also think your argument you just made would also apply to the task force. Because if you're truly going to invite members of the public, they also won't be able to meet during the weekday, during the daytime hours. They're also going to want to meet later on. So it's the same argument for both. The last time we had our meetings, which were pretty successful, we met from 4 to 6, you know, during the weekday. And so people would get off their jobs early. Again, I'm fine. If you want to do task force, and then we meet quarterly. And then we, you know, get their results. I'm just saying that this goes against everything I was trying to work for in terms of engaging, really, truly engaging the community to be involved. But if you feel the task force can do it, then you can vote that way. I'm fine either way. Because I'll make myself available regardless.
What is most important, I believe, is that we develop a path forward where the committee, all committee members are supportive of the process, feel heard, feel engaged, and we also engage with the public. I am happy to have staff pivot and we can do the work at this committee. I do think it is a disservice to the work we need to do if there's not a coming together and if people walk away from the structure frustrated with the structure and that impacts the work we do, I think we've almost failed from the beginning.
You can say that, city manager, but for me, if it doesn't include transparency, openness, and engagement with the public, which is everything I've been talking about this for the last year, then I'm not going to support it. Just because you say we all have to support and get along. If it doesn't include that, I will not support it. I want to make sure that these events really benefit our public and our public has an opportunity to have a say in what happens. They need a say. And so far, we haven't given them that opportunity. And when we walked into this meeting today, you weren't quite sure about the public involvement with the task force and whether or not they were going to be open to the public. You said they're not going to be on Zoom. There might be open to the public. There might be chances that they won't be open to the public. That is not transparent and open. It'll serve a purpose for the people that are, you know, they all have their agendas of what they want to achieve. But my agenda right now, sitting here talking on this committee, my agenda is to make sure our public is involved, because that's the only benefit they're going to have are the events that we put together for these major events, and they're going to be exciting. But I've already have complaints that San Francisco is doing a lot and San Jose is doing a lot. And we've done nothing in Santa Clara. Nothing, we have nothing planned. We literally have nothing planned for our residents as we sit here 10 months from the first event. I mean, gosh, we don't even have agreements signed. We literally have nothing. And right now with this committee is our chance to actually show the public that they can be involved in something that's open. And I know there were only 2 people on the call today, but we didn't really advertise this. Until we advertise it, we're not going to get the involvement. So I'm really feel very strongly that this committee needs to do the work. But if not, and we're just a rubber stamp, then I'm not going to support your concept of the rubber stamp. I just can't.
So if I understand, are you proposing this committee meets every 2 weeks from 4 to 6? Now that couldn't be on Tuesday, it couldn't be on Wednesday, so it would have to be either Monday or Thursday. And I do know we do have some committees that we meet on Monday. So what I'm hearing is Thursday or Friday.
Monday, Thursday, or Friday. And I know we can work around anything, you know, and at least two of us has to be here as long as the public's available. I'm fine with that.
Well, and I will make myself available, especially over the summer when people are in and out. And there might be some concerns that way. I would just like to see the work get done. If those members of the task force, my concern is we have to handle it in such a way that they can do that fundraising away from here. And that's what I'm not clear about.
I don't know how the city manager was planning on handling their fundraising.
I think typically when you get a group together, they establish a leader. That leader would organize that and accomplish that. Certainly staff would not drive it. Council would not drive it. My understanding is last time it was not driven by council or staff, and we would replicate that.
I'm available and would make myself available bi-weekly, 4 to 6 or a different time. I mean, it's a high priority. It's coming up fast. I think that we're a group of people that can offer more than just sign off. So I would like to be involved in a greater capacity. I also think that, you know, even in assigning people to a task force, visibility on that is important to make sure that we have representation for our full community. So it seems like that's done. The task force is established. We have to figure out right now how we mesh into that or work alongside that. But it certainly for me isn't an issue of willingness or ability to meet more frequently. I still am trying to figure out what the ball drop was where the piece of it that this committee wouldn't be able to accomplish besides the fundraising that made all of this necessary in the first place. But this is where we are. And I want to just, you know, restate, yes, I'll certainly be available as well.
Well, I'm thinking about an event we were all at this Saturday, and it took us a year to plan that and to put everything together. And there's a lot of outside of the committee meetings, work that has to be done. And that would have to be assigned out and then making certain you have reports on what's being done, what isn't being done. There has to be a leader to do that. And then there's some things that the mayor can't do because of the fundraising. And that's where we're putting other things aside. That makes more sense to me.
Sure. So what I'm hearing, and I just want to state it clearly and have the committee confirm, is that we would not have a city established task force. We would simply, anyone who we were thinking would be a part of a task force, we would invite them to attend these meetings. We would have these meetings on a roughly 2-week basis, roughly from 4 to 6. Again, all of that is dependent upon council schedule. We would then publish when these meetings would occur. Hope that additional people come. I assume the council members would reach out to have additional people come. The work would occur here, and hopefully through the group, someone sets up a philanthropic effort and seeks to raise funds. That happens, if anyone steps forward to that effect, we can have conversations with them and point them in the right direction, but it would be, we'll tell them the legal guardrails and they could go about doing that.
We missed something there if we establish it this way. The opportunity that we had for fundraising through the outside task force then is gone, and we have to have an advantageous partner willing to step up and do it. Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't want to set up a task force just for funding, right? It was a task force to help think through events, and then we were thinking that something that would spawn from that task force would be fundraising. I think if we're not having a task force and we're inviting people here, certainly conversations can be had, and we can tell people the legal guardrails. And if someone wants to step forward and run that effort, they can run that effort. happens that way for other items, and it's totally fine. But we wouldn't want to set up a task force for the express purpose of only fundraising. They would self-work.
City Manager, I just wanted to understand if the group would actually designate task force members so that we would expect their regular participation, or if it was like an ongoing, I would hate to call it open forum, but like, because I'm not thinking of a better phrase for it. I just was trying to understand whether or not that framework would be, I guess my concern is just individuals, having inconsistent participation, and for something like this, just needing consistent participation.
Well,
right.
In general, I would agree with that, but I think the goal of the committee is to not set up a task force, but instead invite people to attend this meeting. And those could be people that we were envisioning would be on the task force, as well as others. And so this would be a round table or a very long square table where people could come. We would hope that the same people would come on a regular basis. I assumed our council members or committee members would do legwork to encourage people to attend. But we would not have a structured task force that works on ideation and event planning. That work would instead happen here, is what I understand the direction and the desire to be from the committee.
When we had the events last time, we ended up with partners like Santa Clara University sponsored the concert, and Mission College sponsored the other concert. And I think it was a library foundation that had sponsors for the STEM Bowl. So you have to bring them in, and a lot of times they find their own partnerships to pay for all or parts of whatever we're doing, whatever the committee decides to do.
Yeah. And I would assume it would be a little bit of what happens now. And once, let's say we're going to do X program, and the committee has blessed that, there would be meetings set us not in this forum to plan and execute that program, but really the concept development would occur here versus at a task force that then comes to the committee and say, we've met, we've had meetings, here's what we think we want to do. Committee, do you like that? The process now would be that idea generation happens here, but once the idea is formed, it may be something that staff primarily executes, and maybe something that community partners execute, or members that have attended the meeting execute.
Right, we're going to have public with really good ideas, and then we're going to have community partnerships. That's what we are trying to develop, is those partnerships, so that we're not taking on the entire cost of these events. We're looking for our community partners, and they are out there. They are out there and want to help. Are we okay to go this route? Yes, no?
We just need to get it done.
Yeah, quickly.
And everyone needs to pitch in and be willing to do their portion. And not just direct to staff, but be willing to jump in and make the phone calls, follow up, and do whatever it takes.
Agreed. Kelly? Okay. All right. Very good.
We do
Member of
have
the
one
public?
person in the public, but Ian Bonham, you actually spoke already on this item?
Did he speak on this one?
He did on this item.
Let's ask him if he'd like to speak again, since he's our only attendee.
Yeah.
We had a lot of discussion since he spoke.
Yeah. So Ian, if you are interested in speaking, I am going to allow you to talk.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time. Yeah, I think what I'm hearing the mayor say is that she would like the community, not only community leaders or business leaders, but the public, any public, to be involved in the decision-making process of the idea generation. So with the community involvement, having the ability to bring up an idea and have the city, the council members decide amongst each other what would be best according to the ideas that are generated at the meeting, be established at that point with the community's involvement. I mean, that means everybody in the community, because there's lots of community members that don't have stakes in this and that, but they would like to have, their opinions and their ideas heard and maybe implemented. I think what the mayor was trying to say was that she was opposed to, say, the government or the local government making a task force. The task force would be the ones to implement whatever was decided on by the council, I think is what I heard her trying to say. And I think what was happening was it was, aside from all the scheduling, I think that if it was advertised correctly and more members of the community like myself, I don't have very much involvement, but I just happen to be one of those odd ducks that looks into these things every once in a while. So that's why I'm here. But having the community be part of the planning and the involvement of the decisions for the city, so that they can feel engaged, because a lot of the revenue comes from the cities and the taxpayers and all that good stuff. So I think that that's what the mayor was really implying, that she really wants the community to have the opportunity to be part of the planning for these things that are going on. I think it's a little late in the
Thank
process
you.
right now for this to happen as far
thank
as your
you.
time schedule.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you for giving us your thoughts. We appreciate it. Please stay involved. Thank you.
And we have no other hands raised on this.
Okay.
item.
All right, very good. I think we have direction here, so we're going to move on to is there one more item?
Yes.
Can I borrow this? Informational report on leveraging city assets for marketing and revenue opportunities for 2026 Super Bowl and FIFA World Cup matches. Assistant City Manager Baker.
All righty. Excuse me. So good afternoon, committee chair, committee members, staff, and members of the public. I'm going to go back a slide.
Oh,
What? Oh,
let me put it back up. I
Okay.
wasn't able to control
no
it.
worries. So my name is Chuck Baker. I'm the assistant city manager with oversight of Stadium Authority as well as the Convention Center. And thank you. Yep. Yeah. Okay, we'll take a 2-3 minute break. Cool.
Should we take a 5-minute break?
Let's do it. Okay, good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members, members of staff, as well as the public. My name is Chuck Baker, Assistant City Manager with oversight of the Stadium Authority and the Convention Center. So I'm going to present an overview of the City Asset Marketing Program. We refer to it as CAMP, which is designed to leverage city assets for marketing and revenue opportunities related to 2026 Super Bowl and FIFA World Cup. All right, so as we know, we're hosting two major global events. This is the first time a city has hosted both the Super Bowl and World Cup in the same year, an unprecedented opportunity for us. Some of this is redundant, but I'll go quickly through this. There's going to be an influx of hundreds of thousands of visitors attracting global attention. And so for this purpose of the presentation, we're really focused on maximizing marketing and revenue opportunities. So we've had some discussions around fundraising. This is specific to sort of corporate marketing revenue opportunities. And so we've created a program called CAMP. And the purpose of the City Asset Marketing Program, or CAMP, is to monetize city assets, attract sponsors, support community uses, strengthen the city's global presence, and deliver long-term value to the city. One of the key tenets is to have no out-of-pocket costs for this effort or upfront fees to the city. And so we thought it would make sense to open this up to bid. So we created the RFP process that literally started in February. That's when it actually launched. So we ideated this idea of bidding this out to global partners, global advertising agencies, folks that have experience in bringing large resources, both talent, treasure, time, into the city. And so that process started in January and it culminated with the RFP being issued in February of 19. We had a two-step evaluation process. The first one was written proposals, and then phase two was interviews where we had a presentation, and then cost evaluations. And so 3 firms submitted a bid and they all qualified for phase two. So the evaluation criteria was as such. The company qualifications, we knew that this is a sort of unprecedented opportunity. We needed horsepower. We needed to make sure that the qualifications of the company were the top ranking priority. And then we wanted a very innovative project approach. Frankly, this approach of the CAMP program is innovative, right? We don't want to just rely on philanthropy for fundraising. We want to bring in these global partners. And so we wanted the project approach to have that sort of innovative angle as well. And then the fee structure is critically important as well, and that was 20%. So you can see 45%, 35%, and 20%. So the 3 firms that submitted proposals were Canyon Oaks, Tandem Partnerships, and Outfront Media. Canyon Oaks is a local firm based in San Francisco, Tandem Partnerships, San Francisco as well, and then Outfront Media, which is a publicly traded company based in, I believe, Denver, New York City, and San Francisco. And so Outfront Media was selected as the finalists. And I can get into some of the reasons behind that. First, they were the most qualified. Again, 45% of the criteria was qualifications. What made them most qualified was their global experience, multi-language capacity. They have 700 plus salespeople nationwide. They're the largest out-of-home firm, meaning billboards. They have over 1,000 displays here in the Bay Area, over 80 clients, including Apple, Google, Kaiser. And so they also bring activation. And so they do experiential activation. They'll spin up a creative team to do activations around ideas. And so they were sort of the clearly the most qualified in that category. And then secondly, they offered, two of the firms offered no upfront costs. One of the firms had a fee. So they were one of the 2 firms that did not have any upfront costs. But more importantly, they had revenue projections associated with their proposal. And so their conservative revenue projection was 1 million net new revenue to the city based on the monetization of these assets. So that hopefully could be revenues to help offset any activation ideas or just revenue that comes into the general fund. And so where we're at right now is we're in final negotiations. We are not waiting for the final contract. We are starting to talk to them. They actually reached out and said, hey, let's get going. Time is of the essence. We have a general idea, and I'll talk about the structure of the agreement, which should be coming to council very soon. But we're having early conversations with them. And so again, their capabilities and experience, 1.83 billion in 2024 revenue, expertise in out-of-home media, signage and advertising, and then partnerships with major venues and events nationwide. This is their activation at Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. So they can sort of transform buildings, work with our convention center, work with advertising in general. And so the implementation phase has already been outlined. Phase one is to identify and evaluate city assets. Phase two is to confirm the formats and develop marketing materials. So they'll be doing this in kind. They'll be coming here, talking to our staff, working with various stakeholders to determine which assets should be monetized, including assets like youth soccer park or golf course, any asset that we think makes sense and certainly would include input from the community. But at the end of the day, they're going to work out which assets are available for marketing, develop the marketing materials, solicit the sponsorships to their 700 plus sales teams through their sales teams, and then they'll actually execute the on-site production, which should include any installation fees, permit fees, et cetera. So all that is in-house. The fiscal impact, again, is, we're thinking $500,000 to $1 million net new revenue to the city as a conservative number, no anticipated out-of-pocket city costs, and then city staff to support sponsor outreach and event activation.
If I can, as in addition to the assets that the ACM mentioned, there are the city street pole banner signs. There is land that we own and control in and around Levi Stadium that's not along the stadium footprint. And so the goal is to see, is there any monetization of those assets that are possible? But certainly we know that there are sensitivities around many of them, including the youth soccer park. Certainly we know that there will be some of these areas in the hard perimeters, safety perimeter around the stadium. And so we want to see what are the possibilities and then have discussions around what are the impacts, how can they be mitigated? Is there significant revenue to benefit the community and user groups that is worth considering? And so it's really a broad outreach of assets that we have in the area. The city knows that we have 2 water tanks right near Levi Stadium. One is painted with the city's logo. The other is empty. And so we just wanted a company that with no out-of-pocket costs can look at our assets and say, hey, you may not want to monetize them, but here are the opportunities available to you. We can go out and structure this deal. And so it's really to provide opportunity and options to the city, knowing that there's lots and lots of conversations and concerns and considerations around the particular assets.
And so we'll get into questions after the slide. Next steps, finalize the agreement with Outfront, bring the agreement and budget to City Council for approval, then begin the phased implementation upon approval. So with that, we'll take questions.
I have a question. Back before Super Bowl 50, we were looking at doing billboards, and we engaged and contracted with a billboard company that didn't work out well. I'm hoping it wasn't out front. I don't think anybody
No,
here,
it
was it? It was somebody else,
Sole
right?
proprietor, yeah,
It was somebody else, yeah, because we got in real terrible, situation, but we got out of it. Okay, that's good. What kind of things would they do? Do they wrap a building, for sponsorships? Do they, tell us what kind of things that they would
Yeah,
do.
so they can pretty much reimagine a space to whatever criteria you have, right? So if the community says, hey, we want X, Y, and Z outcomes out of this asset, they can reimagine how a sponsor would activate around that, which can include a building wrap, which could include mobile trucks, can include wayfinders. The sponsors are represented by large ad agencies that have their own brand mission. And so the key is to match what we want, the city, the community, and then match that with what the brands think would be cool as an activation that would match their needs. So there's a lot of discussion around, like city manager said, hey, what is it that we're interested in? But at the same time, hey, what are the brands looking for as well? And so there's a conversation to be had, but they can reimagine through wraps, projections, just about anything you could imagine. But at the Super Bowl, they wrapped the buildings, they did drone shows, they laid out displays on the streets, they did mobile billboards, and they did billboards.
So would they only be advertising around Levi Stadium and the north side?
Oh.
It could be anywhere else, but I mean, I
Anywhere.
assume that's where the people and the cameras are. They would want that, but
I would think that any asset is on the table. And so that's the conversation we need to have. And what they bring are frankly resources, right? We didn't really
Right.
have the resources to be able to rethink this ourselves. So they're anxious to get started on, what is it that you guys want to activate, whether it's Triton or Central Park or a parking lot. We need to tell them what we want to activate, and they will go find the sponsor that's interested in that anywhere in the city.
is this for both Super Bowl and World Cup? 'Cause
Correct.
that's different with World Cup. Isn't there like a bigger white zone of no advertising in the World Cup?
The World Cup has a clean zone, correct? And so what we actually have a provision in the assignment assumption agreement that speaks to the camp program that says we will work with commercial affiliates of FIFA and Bay Area Host Committee. So if they're working with Adidas, we'll look to activate around Adidas and double down with an additional Adidas activation, right? So that way, if it's inside the clean zone, we can work with the already approved sponsors. And so that's one of the provisions in the assignment assumption agreement. We work with their commercial affiliates, so we're not ambush marketing, but that's still net new revenue. It would just be with a sister brand or a brand that does not compete. Outside of the clean zone, there's a kind of open-ended, but we still want to be partners in that regard with respect to FIFA.
Do you think there's a likelihood we would get sponsorships outside of the north side?
Yes.
Taking notes furiously as my brain's going. So I love the idea of banners. I mean, we have all those banner possibilities along El Camino, but quite frankly, Lafayette and Great America Parkway are obvious ones as well. As much as possible, but we do have those banner already ready to go places for that. I was thinking about, when you said a mobile truck, I know in Las Vegas, they drive those trucks around that are advertising all sorts of things. And I could see that near the stadium, and it is mobile, and they definitely get your attention, because I was remembering that from there. VTA, they will decorate buses. And they wrap those, and those are pretty cool.
But they'll want the revenues, won't they?
Possibly. Oh, yeah. Well, and see, that's where we have to talk to all these people. I love the idea of the water tanks. I just don't know if they're within that clean zone, but depending on what we could do, because they're right there. We also have two large towers that are private that have been built. They're across from Lafayette. I know back in 2002, I was in Salt Lake for the Winter Olympics. And I know what Salt Lake looks like normally. And I saw how they draped a lot of those large buildings, and it looked pretty doggone cool. And so we also have our parking lot over there. There are some other possibilities. We have some of the buildings really close, and they're private buildings, but close to 101. We have some of those towers. We've got Yahoo. There's a bunch of different possibilities that I'm thinking, why not? Like I said, I'd have to understand the perimeter. When you talked about venues that would be possible, that's where my daughter had her wedding reception at Agnew's. And that is owned by the city, and there is a way to have events there. Now, because it is historic, you have to be careful, but that actually made it easier when we went to decorate for her wedding, because it had to be things that could be moved in and out. We've got some buildings that, when we market ourselves, that could be for events. We also have a wonderful Central Park, and we have that beautiful arboretum type and everything. And we've redone the the playground for the kids. I would love to see something. Why not? I guess, like I said, I was just, I love the idea of decorating the city and having that stay that way for a while and having a why not moment. If you, my husband was, I came in and he was watching Harry Potter, and I remember how they always would decorate that hallway with whoever was being noticed. And I thought, why don't we decorate Santa Clara? Because I know what a difference it made just to fly into Salt Lake and see something a little bit different. And that's us. And the more things that we have that the press can take pictures of, shows us off.
I'm thinking the related project, we have Mount Trashmore, we call it. So it's gonna be our park. You can drape something right there because that's gonna be from the, you know, the blimp or whatever, when
Yeah,
they
we
look
could-
down in the.
We
in
could
the
say, welcome
thing.
world to
We
Santa
can
Clara.
have like a big something there.
Welcome
You'll
world.
see it.
Yeah, I wrote, welcome world to Santa Clara. I mean, somebody who knows what they're doing can
With
do
a
more
bunch of
with that.
sponsors.
Yes, absolutely. Because that was one of the things when I went to the stadium is I looked up there and started taking notes of where all the sponsors and who they were and thinking, oh, okay. That's who you should go after. And I know we have to cover up or not have a lot of that during the FIFA. Wouldn't they love to be just outside of that clean zone and still have their brand shown off? Okay, I'll calm down. I just get really excited.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager. Can you tell me who makes the decisions about the activation? And if it's a private entity, do we have to, I mean, obviously get their buy-in? Is there going to be some kind of bid process for this for people who are interested potentially?
I think there are two parts to that question. One is the process by which Outfront would go and solicit advertisers, and then two, who makes the final decision on the final ads. So Outfront Media would employ their professional expertise to go out and solicit sponsors. They have relationships with sponsors all across the world. And so we're hiring them for that exclusive purpose. Certainly, if we have companies or ideas of who they should approach, we can provide those leads. As far as who makes the final decision, that in general will be the city council. The caveat is we may create a criteria by which some of that authority is delegated. As you may remember, we recently brought forward an item to seek naming rights sponsors at the convention center. And so we're actively seeking naming rights sponsors for the convention center. The city council through that has the final decision on who the naming rights sponsor of the convention center would be, should we find one. But if a company wants to sponsor a room, right, like a meeting room, that has been delegated to staff. And so we may, once we meet with Outfront, create and propose to council a delegation of some of the minor things that we wouldn't, would be more expeditious and wouldn't go to council, but certainly we need to get the contract finished, have those conversations, and then bring that proposal to the city council.
My second question is, when considering this marketing campaign, are we doing this? And it probably is dual. We want the city to have pride in itself, but are we really looking at advantageously marking spots that on publicity news are going to highlight Santa Clara? I think it's one thing to suggest maybe, you know, a nestled-in city down here, but if that's not seen and picked up, I guess I'm asking is, have we identified the intention? Is this an outward-facing effort, or is this a resident thing? Is it an 80-20 split? I mean.
When we went into the ideation around the camp, it was for the residents, but also, monetization. And so we have a theme, which is One Santa Clara, right? And so when we think of One Santa Clara, we think the residents, community, and the monetization and the public being able to understand what makes Santa Clara great, but based in community, based in the residents, right? So we think about, and we actually did that with the redesign of the website, where we're really focused on key aspects of Santa Clara, right? That make us great. So I think that that's going to be part of the marketing materials that you guys will see that come out of the assessment from Outfront that will highlight what makes us special, that would put that in the forefront, already knowing that we like what we're putting out there for sponsors to then market that to the world. Like, how do you take what we think is amazing and make that something that is relevant to these events that would have sort of a global appeal? But that's kind of what they do. That's the magic they create. So it would start with us. Obviously, monetizing is the key financial aspect of it. But from a brand, whether it's Triton Museum or some of the areas, around here, whether it's Santa Clara University Mission, whatever it is that we're doing, Central Park, let's make sure there's a monetization angle that has a sponsor that's interested, but also that really highlights our heritage that we think could be exciting for the world. And that happened at Super Bowl 58. They did that well in Vegas. They had local farmers that was important to them. That became a big story, right? So there's ad agencies that can help create those stories for us.
And Member Cox, to utilize those as a highlight of Santa Clara, right? One of the things we saw in New Orleans is that there were activations of key New Orleans landmarks that then was used as the backdrop for PR and outwardly facing both community relations and to general marketing for the city of New Orleans. And we would seek to replicate that.
One of the things that we're at a disadvantage is because it's the San Francisco Bay Area, and a lot of times they just show San Francisco and parts of San Francisco, or they'll show even in the advertisements for the World Cup, they don't show Santa Clara except for the stadium at the end. They show everything in San Francisco, and then they show San Pedro Square in San Jose, and then at the end they'll show Levi Stadium. So how does Outfront look at our opportunities besides around the stadium for monetizing, other things you talked about, like the Triton Museum or Santa Clara University or whatever we have here, Mission Library, Central Park Library? What is the realistic goal of getting anything sponsored that's not near the stadium? And just because we're not like New Orleans or Las Vegas, where they all had it, everything was together. We're like everything's spread. So that's my question.
Well, I think that's kind of what we're getting out of this committee, right? Is some of the ideas to bring to them. So it's kind of a TBD, but I think this is good, right? Because that needs to be a priority, and it hasn't started yet. So we will provide that direction to them, and I'm very certain they'll be successful because we have great resources. We have great heritage, we have great landmarks. I just don't think people know about it yet. So that one of the benefits of hiring this kind of agency is that we're in the big leagues with them, right? They're gonna be talking to the largest global sponsors that anybody else can reach with professional materials, with professional storytelling. That I think gives us the best shot at what you're talking about. Be able to get in front of the media with our stuff.
Can we get, can we monetize NVIDIA and Intel and those as well?
My mic's not working anymore.
Oh. As part of
City
our
manager.
Santa Clara.
Charge him for taking a picture from
Mrs.
Sam
Manager,
Tomas, right?
Baker, this is focused on city assets, right?
Correct.
So
Oh,
it's,
darn.
yeah, it's,
Oh,
and we do need participation of any private properties, but I think your effort with camp is on city properties
all
mostly.
city property.
Yeah, that's,
Or city assets, meaning like banners and such.
Yeah.
I had two other,
thanks for that.
I've been begging for a drone show. And I know we can't have it at the stadium because it's a no-fly zone. But we could do that in Central Park. That would be, I mean, to me, that's high tech, but still pretty cool. And it would not rain any ash on anybody, like our fireworks. Also, I'm personally working on the historic home walking tour so that we'll have a map so people can walk around and just be able to click on that and see something about those older homes. Yeah. So we should have that done. I'm working with a gentleman who is a wizard at websites, let's put it that way. I would like to make part of this that we have some kind of a mascot. Because that, I know when some of our partners will come and, you know, from Izmo, from South Korea and things like that, often they'll have a mascot that is all about them. And the one from South Korea, it was a little character that had a hat just like they're close by. They have some kind of a beautiful pagoda type situation, and it was built on that. Well, we have the oldest operating train station this side of the Mississippi. I mean, there's a lot of something that we could have somebody sit down and come up with something kind of cool.
That's a good idea for our committee to talk about.
Yeah, I mean,
We had
let's.
little teddy bears last time with little Santa Clara shirts on them.
Yeah, I mean,
Kids.
we should have some sort of and have it, the story that goes with it and why. But also having stickers to pass out and put on
Collateral
things.
materials, I
Yes.
think, for Super Bowl,
I mean,
and World Cup.
tying that together, I will say, one time I was even there, they had ice cubes that were soccer balls. That was pretty cool. I thought that was really interesting. I mean, it wasn't super expensive, but it was something you noticed. And kind of one of those why not moments. Okay.
So what, City Manager Baker, do you need?
No, it was just sort of no direction at this point, just wanted to give you an update, but all this was good.
Informational update.
Informational update.
Contract coming to council for approval in the next few weeks.
But I saw you taking notes when we were all saying things, so that's good.
Should we ask just
Yes,
if
for
anyone? in the
Public, members of the
Yeah,
public.
we
is
don't
there?
see any hands raised, but just a call for, I see one, maybe two members of the public. Is there anyone who has a question or a comment on this item? Please raise your hand. No, we do not.
Okay, anything else?
That was our last
That's-
agenda item, so I think we're at adjournment.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.